Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
Authorities in New London County, Connecticut say that a 62-year-old man is facing a number of charges this week after he allegedly dug up the yard of a home in his neighborhood, threatening the family that lived there and giving a rather bizarre excuse for his actions. The whole thing began at around 10:15 a.m. on January 14th when police in the town of Ledyard received a call from a local woman. The woman said that her neighbor, later identified as 62-year-old Mark Uderstadt, appeared to be in the middle of some sort of freakout. That morning, he had shown up at their house unannounced and had started to dig up their front yard with a rock rake. The woman said that when her husband went outside to tell Uderstadt to stop, he refused to leave, took a swing at her husband with the rake, and threatened him and their two young kids. The 62-year-old also claimed that he owned the neighborhood, and most strangely of all, had accused the family of being pirates. When police arrived at the scene, Uderstadt was placed under arrest. By that time, he had apparently changed his reasoning about why he was digging up the yard, now stating that he did it because he believed his neighbors were trying to install a water line. The 62-year-old is now facing charges, including risk of injury, second-degree threatening, fourth-degree criminal mischief, breach of peace, and simple trespass.
Representatives from Texas's Beaumont police are asking for the public's help in identifying a trio of suspects this week, following an armed robbery at the tail end of last year that featured an unexpected bit of physical comedy. According to reports, the incident took place on New Year's Eve at the Popeyes fast food location on Phelan Boulevard. It began shortly before 9 p.m. when three masked and armed suspects walked into the restaurant. The robbers had barely made it inside when the crime was almost over before it even began, thanks to some slippery floors, which immediately caused two of the suspects to fall to the ground. The third skidded around a bit, though was eventually able to recover his balance. Unfortunately, the embarrassing falls didn't deter the robbers, who proceeded to head into the back of the restaurant where they threatened employees before making off with an undisclosed sum of money. While the suspects took care to cover their faces during the crime, Beaumont police are hopeful that they can be identified by their fairly distinctive clothing or the blue vehicle they were seen in before the robbery. Until they know their actual names, it seems police have decided to name them after the Three Stooges, owing to their hilarious on-camera fall that was caught on surveillance. Authorities are asking for anyone who might have information about the case to please come forward.
Representatives from the NYPD say that a 46-year-old man is in custody this week after he allegedly stabbed his elderly parents to death in their apartment and then attempted to barricade himself away from police. According to reports, the situation began at around 5:20 p.m. on January 20th when authorities received a call from a resident in an apartment building on the 1100 block of 45th Street in Brooklyn's Borough Park neighborhood. The caller said that they were concerned because they had heard disturbing noises coming from the apartment above them. The place belonged to a 75-year-old couple named Jacob and Rachel Sperber. When officers arrived at the scene, they found the elderly couple, each of whom were suffering from multiple serious stab wounds. They were rushed to a local hospital, though sadly, both later died of their injuries. In the meantime, NYPD hostage negotiators were back at the scene trying to speak with the victim's adult son, Meyer Sperber. It's now alleged that after attacking his parents, the 46-year-old barricaded himself in their apartment and refused to come out. The tense situation lasted for roughly an hour until Sperber finally surrendered and was taken into custody while strapped to a stretcher. While little is known about the alleged motive behind the crime, neighbors of the victims told local media that they believed Sperber suffers from mental health issues. One resident described the 46-year-old as disturbed and awkward, saying, quote, "He's had issues in his life," while another stated, quote, "We all knew the son is weird." The victims, meanwhile, were described as a quiet but nice couple who were well known in the community. Jacob Sperber, in particular, had a reputation for being kind, with neighbors saying that he would feed hungry people in the area and would invite them over to his house for food. At the time of this recording, no charges have been filed in the case.
Authorities in Idaho Falls, Idaho released a tragic update in the disappearance of a Washington woman this week, announcing that after nearly a month they had found her body along with her missing RV and have now arrested her estranged boyfriend for her murder. The disturbing case began several weeks ago when police in Montana received information about a possible missing persons case. The family of 34-year-old Megan Ashley Stedman had contacted authorities after becoming concerned when they failed to hear from her over the Christmas holidays. It wasn't like her to suddenly cut off contact, especially with her daughter who had a birthday coming up. They were also worried because one of the last times they had heard from her, she told a close friend that she was traveling with her estranged boyfriend, 42-year-old Chris Foyles, who she had previously been trying to end her relationship with. Based on information from Megan's loved ones, police put out an alert to the public asking for information. The alert stated that the 34-year-old had been working at a gas station in Livingston, Montana, and had last been seen on December 15th, either there or in the Bozeman area. Special attention was given to Megan's 1973 Landau RV, which she was believed to have been traveling in. Reports stated that the vehicle had noticeable damage to the rear driver's side and had red stripes down its sides that had recently been painted blue. The search continued for the 34-year-old until January 12th, when police received a tip from a member of the public that Megan's RV had been sighted in Idaho Falls. They arrived at the location this person had described and were able to verify that this was the missing RV. Before police could make any kind of move, however, a man exited and approached officers. Chillingly, he allegedly stated, quote, "I am Chris Foyles. I killed my girlfriend. She is in the RV." Sadly, police soon learned that the 42-year-old was telling the truth. Megan's body was inside the vehicle. She had died from multiple stab wounds. During questioning, Foyles reportedly told investigators that he and Megan had been traveling together in the RV when they arrived in Idaho Falls on the night of December 22nd. After parking at a local Walmart, he said that they got into an argument. Because Megan already had a no-contact order against him, Foyles said he worried she was going to call the police. To stop her, he stabbed her in the neck and then the chest, allegedly stating that he intended to kill her. Disturbingly, Foyles admitted that this initial attack hadn't killed Megan. She hadn't died until later when he stabbed her several more times in the upper back when he heard her still moving around in the back of the RV. It appears that he had been living with the body ever since. At the time of this recording, Foyles has been arrested and charged with first-degree murder, though police say that they are still actively investigating the situation. In particular, they say that they are trying to collect as much additional information as they can about Megan's movements between December 15th and the time that her body was found.
Authorities in Santa Clara County, California say that a 56-year-old local man has been arrested and is facing murder charges this week after he was accused of murdering his wife and then attempting to cover up the crime by hiding her body in the Santa Cruz Mountains. The case began on January 8th when officials in the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department received a call from a woman claiming that she was worried about one of her employees, 40-year-old Ying Don Yu. The woman stated that she hadn't heard from Don since before New Year's and had been unable to reach her. Police contacted Don's husband, 56-year-old John Yeager, who almost immediately piqued their suspicions. Not only did he provide inconsistent statements concerning his wife's supposed whereabouts, authorities learned that the couple had been involved in a domestic dispute on New Year's Eve, one in which Don was reported to be the victim. Over the next couple of days, multiple law enforcement agencies began to work the case, managing to uncover further incriminating evidence suggesting Yeager was responsible for his wife's disappearance. This included information showing that he had traveled to the Santa Cruz Mountains in early January in the exact window during which Don went missing. During a search of the area where Yeager was believed to be, investigators discovered human remains belonging to a woman last week. They now allege those are Don's remains, though a formal identification has yet to take place. In the meantime, John Yeager has been arrested and charged with first-degree murder and false imprisonment. The situation is still developing.
Authorities in Pinellas County, Florida say that a 42-year-old woman is facing new charges this week, following a harebrained scheme in which she allegedly planned to try and fool a court-ordered drug test with dog urine. The whole thing started back on December 28th, when 42-year-old Jessica Beatty was arrested for possession of drug paraphernalia and driving with a suspended license. She was later freed on her own recognizance, though since this was apparently far from her first drug-related arrest, the order came with the stipulation that Beatty submit to drug testing while out on release. Fast forward to January 11th, when Beatty reported for her first test at the Pinellas County Misdemeanor Probation Unit. It was here, when prompted to provide a urine sample, that she allegedly tried to sneak a phony one in instead. After being caught by probation officers, Beatty apparently confessed that she planned to try and fool the test. Her plan was to use pee that she said she had collected from her aunt's dog. Now, in case it wasn't already obvious, this would not have worked, even if Beatty had somehow managed to get the phony sample past officers. According to OHS Health and Safety Services, a California-based company that conducts these kinds of drug tests, animal urine and human urine has a bunch of noticeable differences, and in this case would have been easily detected. According to reports, Beatty was arrested after revealing her plan and has been charged with urine testing fraudulent practices. The order freeing her was also revoked, and she is now back in jail in connection with her previous arrest. Reports do not mention how Beatty was collecting the dog urine that she attempted to use in her scheme.
A quiet New Jersey town has reportedly been left in shock and disbelief this week after all 4 members of a local family were tragically found dead inside their house, which they were scheduled to be evicted from. The situation began on the morning of January 17th when police in Union Township showed up at the residence in question, located on Lindcrest Terrace. They were there to evict the Alarcon family after their house had been foreclosed upon late last year. In November, the home had been sold for $322,000 at a sheriff's sale, after which they had been given 60 days to vacate the property. When officers showed up at the house at around 10:30 a.m., they reportedly found the place eerily quiet. They soon discovered why when they entered and discovered the 4 family members dead from apparent gunshot wounds. Judging by the position of the firearm, they now alleged that the mother of the family, 41-year-old Andrea Alarcon, was the shooter. It's believed that she killed her 51-year-old husband, Reuben, and her 9 and 6-year-old daughters, Scarlett and Emma, before ultimately turning the weapon on herself. Currently, few other details are available about the incident, as authorities say they're still trying to establish exactly what happened. Neighbors said that they hadn't seen the Alarcons for several days ahead of the horrifying discovery, and that the family had lived in the neighborhood for about 15 years. Those who knew the family told local media that they were caught completely off guard by the awful tragedy, and that they never saw anything like this coming. A woman who identified herself as the youngest victim's first-grade teacher recalled how Andrea Alarcon appeared to be a loving, nurturing, and generous mother. One who sent her daughter to school with beautifully prepared lunches every day that were cut into the shape of a heart. At the time of this recording, the investigation continues.
Authorities in the city of Pueblo, Colorado, say that they have charged a 26-year-old man in connection with a disturbing and brutal murder this week, after a woman's dismembered remains were found near a local creek, and he was allegedly found to have one of her body parts in his possession. The whole situation reportedly began sometime on January 10th, when Pueblo police were contacted by a man who said that he had information about a murder. The man stated that he knew where the victim's body was, and that he believed his 26-year-old roommate, Solomon Martinez, was responsible for the crime. Authorities traveled to the location in question, an area of Fountain Creek just south of Highway 47, where they were able to confirm what the roommate had told them. There, they recovered the mutilated remains of a woman. Chillingly, several of her body parts had been removed, including her head, which was found nearby. The following day, police arrested Martinez at work. He was reportedly working as a security guard for a company owned by the former Pueblo County Sheriff. Horrifyingly, when officers searched the 26-year-old, they found a severed hand in a plastic bag tucked into the left chest pocket of his jacket. Investigators alleged that the hand belonged to the female victim they had found on January 10th. During questioning, Martinez reportedly admitted to hiring the woman, who he claimed was a sex worker, a few days earlier. He claimed that the last time he had seen her was when he dropped her off, and she was totally fine. Unfortunately for the 26-year-old, by this point detectives had already collected compelling statements and evidence from his roommate, as well as a second witness described only as his friend. The roommate told authorities that around 5 o'clock in the morning on January 9th, he had been at a car wash near Troy Avenue and Constitution Road working on his car when Martinez had pulled in as well. The 26-year-old was acting strangely and was covered in what appeared to be dirt and blood. After washing himself off with a pressure washer, Martinez allegedly asked the roommate to dig him a 10-foot hole. The roommate stated that he refused to help the 26-year-old and asked if he could use some of Martinez's tools to finish the work on his car. Martinez apparently wouldn't let his roommate go into the back of his vehicle, instead forcing him to wait while he retrieved the items. The roommate said that he appeared to be struggling to move something big while trying to get access to the tools. The second witness, Martinez's friend, was allegedly able to provide further unsettling details about the crime. He explained that he had observed the 26-year-old dragging the victim's body down to where it was later recovered. He refused to help despite being threatened by Martinez with a gun, and instead apparently recorded footage of his friend dumping the body to, quote, cover for himself. He allegedly showed this video to several people before turning it over to police. After being confronted with these statements by investigators, Martinez reportedly tried to blame the second witness for the crime. He claimed that the friend had borrowed his car and had returned it later with blood on the inside. It appears that authorities did not buy the 26-year-old's version of events for several reasons. For starters, he was visibly nervous throughout his interview with detectives and kept changing his story. His cell phone was also allegedly in his vehicle throughout the window in which he claimed his friend had borrowed it, and he was covered in cuts to his wrists and hands, which he could not reasonably explain. At the time of this recording, Martinez remains in custody on suspicion of first-degree murder. The name of the female victim has not yet been released. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.